Hey guys, and welcome to the Full Color Waterfowl podcast. On today's episode 64, live from our video podcast studio. Yes, I've been telling you guys that for a little bit, but now it is a reality. So we are able to do all the stuff that we were hoping to do going forward, and just going to get better from here on out. So my selfless plug of the day, guys. Wingbeat podcast. What? Why would a podcast be given a selfless plug to another podcast? Well, my buddy. I can do what I want, and I feel like I'm a good friend, so I take care of my friends. I make myself out there and available to be able to rep people that I believe in, people that I know who they are as a person. And their heart is in the right place, so that is why I give selfless plugs in that respect. So Wyatt at the Wingbeat podcast and Dylan and Dawson, they are doing some good things over there, trying to get their podcast rolling. I think they're on episode 5 or 6. I think 5. But they are getting that stuff rolling. Theirs is more geared toward like a conversational format. Not so much what I'm doing, but nonetheless, they are going into their realm of the podcast stuff. So give them a look, guys, and let them know that you heard from it from Full Color Waterfowl. Greatly appreciate it. Wyatt will find this one out anyway because he listens to the podcast, so me and him can have nice off the color conversations about waterfowling and all the stuff that I am very opinionated on, and he kind of understands that we have a good mutual back and forth on that kind of stuff. So on this podcast, guys, I wanted to go into a couple different things from the 5 days of opening weekend of duck hunting. So within the 5 days of opening weekend here in central Wisconsin for duck hunting, I hunted 4 of the 5 days. So I took off some time off of work to get my butt out there and be able to get in the marsh and just enjoy it from an early season perspective. So what you guys have been seeing, if you follow us on Instagram, is I get into a lot of bird identification stuff. I like getting into teaching kids about waterfowl, teaching older gentlemen about waterfowl, identification of birds, and being able to just understand everything that's around you and how you can kind of better yourself in understanding it all to where when you're out there in the marsh, you can have the best day that you're looking forward to having out there. Because I know, let's face it, guys, a lot of people don't have the time to take off of work, so they have to pick and choose priorities, right? And sometimes those priorities are kids, home life, work, weddings, all the other responsibilities that come into it. So if you can be successful, me babbling, talking to you about education and resources and stuff like that, if I give you any little bit of knowledge that helps you, that's what I'm after with this podcast. That's what I'm after with my bird identification stuff. So going forward, guys, if you see that stuff and you like what I'm putting out there, give a comment on the podcast. Let me know. Let me know, like, yeah, you're going in the wrong angle. Let me know, like, oh, this really helped me. I greatly appreciate it. I love seeing those comments. Lets me know that you guys are engaged and liking what I'm putting out there. And just makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing, because after all, I'm doing this to help better other hunters, not just myself. Not to be famous, not to make money, not to be monetized and all this kind of stuff. Simply be able to put new hunters and old hunters out there doing the right thing every time and making sure that at the end of the day, you have a good time in the marsh. You have a good time in the fields, in the dry fields, hunting geese, hunting ducks, all that kind of stuff. So on this podcast, guys, with the 5 days that I took off for opening weekend / Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for waterfowl hunting, it's a vast difference from opening weekend to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, weekday hunting. And yeah, we played the game. If you've listened to the podcast, I did the parking lot talks. I did a couple of those. Just being out there when other people are out there doing the same thing that we're doing, right? They want to be out there. They want to be successful. And I get it. If you're out in the marsh and you get there at, let's face it, Friday night, there's people in the parking lot already at 2 o'clock. Friday night, 6 o'clock. Friday night. We didn't get out there that early. We got out there about 10:30, and then slept in our boats. But the whole opening weekend thing, guys, I get it, but I don't, right? We've gotten to the point, and I talked about it on the previous podcast, of we've gotten to the point where if you're not willing to put in all this time and effort to get to a spot, the night before, midnight, 10 p.m., and all that kind of stuff for opener, you're having a hard go at being able to, get a good spot. Not just a spot, a good spot to get you in, to be able to go out there and just enjoy your time and get a good limit of ducks. For some people, let's face it, limits aren't everything, right? The internet likes to lie to us and tell us that that is what you have to be a waterfowler. That is absolutely not true. If you're good at waterfowl hunting and you're good at putting yourself in a situation to where you can get limits, yes, that's great. That shows that you're evolving as a hunter and being able to put yourself in a position to get on birds and do it consistently and successfully each and every time. For the average hunter, that's not a thing. You're going out there, you're getting on birds, and you just want to be able to, come home with a couple birds. So for the people that were going out there on opening night and going into opening day, you're going to run into people. That's expected on public land. Unless you're in a dry field or something like that on private property, more than likely you're going to run into people. With our opening night, opening weekend, we ran into some kids that, I've talked about it before. You kind of have a little animosity of, two people or two groups want to be in the same area. Sometimes people get grumpy, agitated. They don't want to see you out there because they want to get there first. And if they beat you there or you beat them there, that camaraderie piece should always be there. That's the part in waterfowl that we have to get used to bringing back and understanding is if you're willing to put in the time and effort to get there first, the gentleman thing to do when you get to a parking lot is allow that to happen. If you beat them there or they beat you there, vice versa, tuck tail, go to a different spot, and just make it work. Because if you've planned, we've talked about that before, if you've planned, you should have a plan B and a plan C. Maybe even a plan D. Because sometimes with opener, you really need those things to be able to be successful. Because if you just have one idea on where to go and somebody's already there, you're kind of screwed, to be honest. But we had good conversations in the parking lot, and we got past that part, and got out there. Their group got, I think, 8 or 9 ducks. We had 9 ducks. Kind of a wash between what spot we could have gone to, which going to the other spot. So from that respect, there wasn't a lot of birds out there, guys. We had early, right when first light hit. We could have limited out on birds. However, we were so in an area where the birds wanted to be that we were covered in birds the first 15 minutes to where, when I'm saying they were gun barrel high, we had birds coming in at 5 feet, 10 feet from our gun barrel. And as me as a hunter that believes in ethics, I'm not going to shoot a duck at 5 yards. That's just not happening. So when all that stuff happens, you just kind of work your way through it. And then when you get opportunities that are a little farther out, you take them. Well, yes, we ended up coming out of the marsh with 9 ducks. But you see, by burning ourselves out going into Sunday, me and my buddy Adam kind of had enough of Saturday/Friday night to where we were like, let them have them. Let them have them for Sunday. I had off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after that, and I wanted to have every opportunity to use those 3 days that I took off of work to be able to get out there, get on birds, whatever would be remaining after the opening weekend, because let's face it, these birds haven't been shot at all year until opening weekend, opening day, and now they're shot at like crazy for 2 full days. Well, if you're shooting at birds for 2 full days, a couple things are going to happen. These birds are going to be super decoy shy. They're either going to bug out of town, or they just are going to just sit in areas, sit in the refuges, and they're not going to want to be touched. Well, going into Monday after the weekend, you could kind of tell that was part of part of what was going on there. However, once the marsh calms down and it's just me versus nature, like I've talked about before, there was opportunities for me there, but I had to pick my battles. So when I was out there on Monday, I ended up getting a limit of ducks, and this got me into doing some of these bird identification videos that you've been seeing if you've been following me, whether it's on Instagram or TikTok. I've been doing a lot of them because it's very important to me. And the reason it's important to me is when I go to expos and I have booths at expos or just talking to the general public. I met a gentleman on the trail when I was walking out with my limit on Monday. In my cart, I had 2 gadwalls, I had a redhead hen, I had a ringer hen, and I had a pintail and I think a green-winged teal. So I had 5 different ducks, right? And this gentleman walked up to me. He had a couple dogs with him. And when he walked up to me, the first thing he said was like, "Oh, it looks like you got some ducks." Yeah, I used to be a duck hunter, but I just don't do it anymore because I just can't put on all the effort to get out there. I'm like, "Oh, okay." Had that camaraderie, had that conversation. And he got to the point where he looked in my kayak and he goes, "Oh, look, you got a mallard." That was a pintail. And I said, no, that's a pintail. "Oh, yeah, you got a couple widgeons here." Both of them were gadwalls. And he went down the list of naming all the ducks that I had in my boat, and he named every single one of them wrong. So why is that important? Well, he already said he hunted ducks for many, many years. He already told me that he was a duck hunter previous, and he just gave it up because, he just couldn't do it anymore. But you see, he couldn't do it anymore, but yet he can't name any single duck that's in my boat. So when people say that the young generation are the ones that just don't know what their ducks are because nobody taught them, that's completely false. When I go to expos and stuff, and I have stickers laying on my booth, and kids walk by with their daddy, and they're like, "Oh, daddy, I want a sticker." And the dad of the son says, "Hey man, yeah, can my son have a sticker of that buffalo head that you got there?" And it's a hooded merganser. We're failing ourselves here as a society in teaching kids and teaching people in general how to identify birds. So you see, where do we start with it? Where do we go with it? How do we get better at it? Well, there's a couple different ways, right? You can go out there and shoot shit and hope for the best. And then once it's in your boat, you can pull out your Delta Waterfowl ID guide, and you can be like, "Okay, oh shit, I shouldn't have shot that. That's this, and I already have 7 of these in my boat." You could do that route, right? You can guess and then throw them in the weeds like people do. If people try to tell you and you believe that they don't overshoot birds and then chuck them in the weeds because they don't know what the identification part of it is, they're lying to you. I don't want to incriminate kids. I don't want to put people in a negative light, but I have a lot of conversation with young kids. I know there's a lot of bad crap that happens in the marsh that the wardens don't know about because, well, they hide the evidence. They get rid of it. They boot stomp it. They do all the things to make the bad thing go away because they chose not to learn their birds. Now, if we had a little bit of education along this, my firm belief, guys, if I was the Wisconsin DNR, God, that would be a terrible job. Anyway, if I was the Wisconsin DNR in charge of having people get licensed to be a waterfowl hunter in the state of Wisconsin, at the time when you get your license, you would have to go through a test. All it would be is a very simple one. 41 ducks. Hell, you could even do 20 ducks because most people aren't going to shoot all 41 huntable species in North America and Wisconsin. Let's face that. You boil it down to 25 ducks that are the most common ducks that you're going to have in central Wisconsin, and have it be a multiple choice picture test. And in order to pass the test, you have to get more than 90% correct to be able to get a license. Would that change anything? I don't know. Would it be something that would at least have people click through the pictures and actually have to answer questions and figure out what birds are? Do a little bit of research before they just go whacking and stacking out in the marsh? Yeah, it would. Would it make us better hunters and better understanding of things in the marsh? Yeah, I believe it would. So why don't we do that? Well, it's simple. Different states want you to just buy the license, go out, enjoy the resource, and have a good time. We've all looked in the bird identification / Wisconsin DNR or whatever state you're in, Department of Natural Resource guide on what you can and can't do in natural resources. The further you dig into those books, those resources that you have at your disposal, a lot of the time they get more and more confusing, more and more gray areas, more and more areas that it's just like, okay, I think I can do that, but I don't know if that's legal. So who do you call? Well, wardens are there for a reason. You don't have to go by the age-old philosophy of, warden's just out there to give you a ticket. Well, if that's your philosophy, then you have a piss-poor outlook on life. They're there to be your friend and resource. If you use them as such, they have a vast knowledge of things that they can help you. Now, when you go through those books and you find things that you're unsure about, I've had conversations with wardens many times where I ask them a general question and they go, Justin, I have no idea. I have no idea if I would cite you on that or I would be able to even give you a correct answer. So let me get back to you. But every time they do get back to me. And we're able to go forward with it and figure out a solution to the problem that I bring up. So you see, guys, when I was going into this weekend and this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of hunting, when I shot my first limit on that Monday of divers and puddle ducks and all that, that's when I got to the point where I'm like, I want to go more into the bird identification piece for you guys and different people that listen to the podcast, listen to just me talk about ducks and how much I enjoy them. I genuinely enjoy duck hunting because I like mixed bag hunts where I can go out and I don't know what's coming into my decoys. So I'm throwing the kitchen sink at them with different decoys, whether it's gadwalls, widgeons, mallards, a couple pintails mixed in, some blue-wing and green-wing teal early season decoys mixed in. I'm the furthest from a mallard purist. I love the fact that when I set a crazy spread of just Heinz 57 ducks, that's just mutts, a whole bunch of mutts, and all of a sudden that my duck, the one that I love the most, the widgeon, comes in, and I can see it from afar and I can identify it, and I know when I can see it and identify it that I know the majority of the time, if they're already committing and I'm calling to them, I know they're going to come in and I'm going to get an opportunity. Man, there's nothing better than that. That's the part that gets me out in nature and gets me to the point where I want more of that. So, when you see me going through and talking about diver ducks in particular are very tough. Even for a seasoned hunter, a lot of diver ducks are blue, black, gray, and white. There's really not going on for them. You got your bluebills, you got your ringers, you got your redheads. Unless they're full color, which around here, guys, a lot of stuff isn't full color until our season's almost over. That's when we're getting the full color, full plumage ducks in. If we're not seeing them in full color, you got to really be able to watch what you're doing. So that's why I had the couple videos that I put out of showing you guys the difference between a ringer and a redhead and that kind of stuff so that you can see those little subtle differences in the field to make you a better hunter. So that was Monday. Monday started off the whole educational piece when I was doing the diver stuff. Then I got into Tuesday. So Tuesday was a moment that I never thought was going to happen. I never really brought it up to my father. My dad's a big deer hunter. My family's deer hunting family with central Wisconsin. It's in our blood. It's what we do. I grew up on deer hunting, and like I've talked about on previous stuff. And it got to the point where I finally asked my dad if he'd want to go duck hunting with me. And I had a Tuesday off. My mom and dad just recently retired, so he's got a lot more time on his hands to be able to do those kind of things. So he decided, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll come out with you. So Tuesday was father-son hunt, and I never thought my dad would go duck hunting. I really didn't. I never thought that would be a part of his repertoire of hunting, because he never really showed much interest in wanting to do it. He enjoys and shares in the passion that I have for waterfowling, but he never got to experience it fully until Tuesday. So I borrowed a kayak from a buddy. I had my kayak and just wanted to be able to get out there and have him be comfortable and understand the whole experience that was. So I don't think he fully understood how much effort goes into waterfowling on public land when you can't use your Prodigy boat, you can't use your mud motor, you can't do all that motorized crap, you can't back the boat down the boat trailer or the boat ramp and put in and go hunting. It's take all your crap out of your truck in a parking lot, hook it all to a little tiny garden cart, walk 2 miles in just to get to water, mind you, and then we're not to the part where we get to hunt. We still have to paddle out 600 to 800 yards and get to a little spot, and then finally we're to the point where we can set decoys. Well, we got in the water, and my dad never wore a pair of waders before, and he went tromping in there like he was just walking through the woods. And, well, if any of you guys walked in marsh mud before, that marsh mud snuck up on him pretty quick, grabbed him by the ankles, grabbed him by his knees, and he was trying to find his sea legs pretty quick out there. And it was hard not to laugh, because I understand the perspective of never having waders on and just not understanding why the marsh is trying to consume you. But he figured it out enough to where he got in the kayak and we paddled out, got to the spot, and I kind of let him get settled into where we were going to go, and just kind of made it to the point where at that point, if he was in the boat up in the cattails, be able to stand up, I set the decoys, did all the stuff that I have my system. If any duck hunter, if you're the dude that sets the decoys or brings the decoys, you have your own system, you do your own thing. Leave me alone, let me do my stuff, and get to the point where you get everything set up and ready to go. Well, once I got in the blind and we were kind of talking back and forth, my dad kind of said, it's like, you do all this stuff by yourself out here? Yeah, I do. What happens if something goes wrong? Yep. It's all you. If you fall in, you fill your waders, you go head first out of your kayak and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you got to figure it out on the fly. And can waterfowling be dangerous? Absolutely. One thing I press with a lot of kids is gun safety, IDing birds and that kind of stuff. But in all seriousness, guys, if you don't understand how quickly things can change out in the marsh, if you have a loaded gun and you're by yourself and you don't realize that safety is off, or you put it in the side of a boat in a different manner, now you're tromping around and trying to get in your boat and that's a fully loaded gun, stuff can happen in a split second that changes not only your life for the rest of your life, but somebody else that's with you. You see, in high school, I had a buddy that, he duck hunted quite frequently before I even got into it. And one of the stories that I've always heard, and I kind of keep it in the back of my mind as a safety issue for me, is, well, he was out hunting with his uncle. He got into a spot. They were in a canoe. And he thought his gun was unloaded. He thought his gun was on safety. Well, it wasn't either of those. It wasn't either one of those. The gun was in the front of the boat. Uncle went to push the boat out, and dog was bouncing around in the boat. And the rest of the story is the dog stepped on the trigger. Uncle lost his face, his head, and my buddy lost his uncle. That fast. So no matter how fast you're going in the marsh, no matter how quick you want to get out there, no matter how fast you want to get set up, take the time to calm down. Take the time to go through the steps with the safety aspect of it, guys, because no different than playing with a chainsaw and putting it above your head and cutting trees down on a ladder and that kind of thing. Duck hunting with guns and water and all the stuff that can happen, it can all happen in a heartbeat and things change on you. So always have that in the back of your head as, okay, worst case scenario, what could happen right now if I don't do X, Y, and Z? So you always have that kind of ingrained in your head that you don't want that to happen in your hunt. You should never want to have that happen, obviously, but do what you can to prevent it and make it not happen. So when we got out in the marsh, we had ducks in the area, but I wouldn't say there was much to really kind of write home about. My dad had a great time. So we got out in the marsh, we got on some ducks. I just wanted some mallards to come in and just drop out of the heavens for him so he could see them from a distance and identify them. On my day that I just had today, on Wednesday, I talked about different things that you see when mallards come in. He was able to kind of pinpoint some of that stuff in flight when mallards were coming in because, well, he had a couple that dropped right out of the heavens on us and gave us that full look, that full drop down into your decoys look so you could identify that little black triangle on their butt of a drake and be able to see that in real time and kind of understand like, oh, okay, now I understand what Justin was talking about. So he was able to get some shots on birds. We ended up with 4 mallards that day and a one-man mallard limit. He got to shoot at some birds, helped me take a couple out on the water. But for him, he enjoyed it. The first part was a struggle, obviously. He got out there. He was sweating his butt off because that mud walking and stuff like that, it's a lot if you've never done it before. It's also a lot if you've never been to a marsh before and the only first time you're going there is in the dark with waders on walking through mud for the very first time. So that aspect of it, now that he got the full realm of what I do as a waterfowler, he wants to go again. So that's the kind of the cool part. I didn't think he'd say that, but he wanted to get back out. He told my mom that he's willing to go give it a try again and get on some more birds once it gets later in the season. So hopefully that comes to fruition and we're able to do that. But I never thought I would see the day that I would get my dad actually out in the marsh hunting with me, and it was just an all-around good day, guys. When you can show somebody your passion, whether it's your own father, your grandpa, some young kids that you don't know, and you can help educate people on why you're so passionate about it, and then they see it firsthand, there's nothing better than that. So with the podcast and stuff, that's one thing I just push a lot is the education piece. For those of you that know me, for those of you that follow me on Full Color Waterfowl, I love the photography. I love the aspect of just showing people God's grace and glory on these birds and how beautiful they can be when they're in spring plumage, when they come back from the reverse migration. But the other side of that is just being able to help people in a manner that makes them understand what they're doing out in the marsh. You get a lot of the younger generation, that, I wouldn't say that I paint them with a broad brush and a negative light of, shooting seagulls and all this kind of stuff. We've talked about it before. It's the 1% that makes the 99% look bad. It truly is. But if you can get to the point where you're giving somebody an educated fighting chance to do what's right in the marsh and harvest a limit of ducks that doesn't put them in a negative illegal standing with the DNR or the wardens, why wouldn't we all want to do that? My mission going forward with this video podcast and being able to just do more of these educational videos is just that. When you're seeing blue-wing and green-wing teal, how to identify them, what to look for. Blue wings, they're a little bit bigger bird. Blue patch on the wing, that's huge when you see it if you turn and they come into your decoys. If people are setting decoys correctly to get those birds to come in and give them a look, 90% of your birds, guys, if you can see the wing bars, you're in the home stretch of being able to figure out and identify what's in front of you. But you just got to get them to that point. Green wings, on the other hand, smaller little fat little butterball. They are white-bellied, and you can tell that they're a teal because, well, they're small. So those ones aren't that hard to be able to, kind of identify. But then you get into your mallards and stuff, like if you've watched some of the stuff that I put out on Facebook, early season mallards do not look like your typical, North Dakota mallards that people are shooting over corn. They don't have the bright green heads. They're not gray. They don't have the huge chestnut color on their chest to identify them over a hen. You really have to pick and choose and understand what you're shooting at. And if we can get to the point where, the majority of kids understand from afar, okay, that's a pintail because it has a long neck and it's whistling, so I can hear that, and now it's going to come into my decoys. Now I can drop my mallard call, I can pick up my whistle and just little tweets at it and get it to come in, helping you fill a bag limit of ducks and staying legal at the same time. That's my mission. So going into these next few weeks and months of duck hunting, figure out what you can do to not only help yourself, but also help the people around you. Some of your friends might talk a big game, but they might not have any clue on what duck is what and why. So help them out. If you know diver ducks and they know puddle ducks, work together. Work together as a team. If you're having ducks come over the top of you, identify them. Even if you know what they are, look at them and identify them so that you can kind of consistently have that in the back of your head. Those are mallards. Those are widgeons. Here come some gadwalls. And it helps you get better in the marsh to be able to just get yourself to a point where you know your birds. And that's what it should be about. Because, well, if you're calling a mallard call at a widgeon, it doesn't always work. But if you throw that little and you throw that whistle out there and they come cranking in, you're going to be like, oh, I'm so glad I knew that was a widgeon because he's in my boat now. Food for thought. So going into the rest of October for me, October for full color waterfowl, we're going to be doing a lot of podcasts. We're going to be trying to do a lot of this video podcast that we can upload to Spotify. But I'm actually going out October 11th and 12th is when we're going to do our university hunt program. Our university hunt program is very important to me because we've partnered with a landowner that's willing to open up his entire acreage to us with 28 ponds, with beautiful prairies, native prairie grasses, and all the kind of things. That the property that we're going to be hunting is a great piece of property. It has everything for deer and turkeys and ducks and everything that would want to reside there. The gentleman did a lot of work to make it to the point where everything from butterflies to deer and turkeys and all that stuff reside there because they have the food, they have the resources that they need to thrive. So with bringing these kids there and being able to be a mentor to them, they have everything at their disposal to start off their waterfowl journey on a beautiful piece of property, be able to harvest some birds, and hopefully we get them on some birds. We need some colder weather here for you guys that are not from Wisconsin. It was like 82 degrees here today, which totally sucks for October 1st in Wisconsin. There are some weeks and some months that for duck hunting that by the end of October we're froze out. So 82 in the beginning of October, which is very odd. But if we can get these kids on birds and get people hooked, my thing, I understand from a nonprofit perspective and all that kind of stuff, to get new hunters involved and get new people into the sport, new, right? I don't think we need more hunters. We don't. What we need is educated hunters. Hunters that aren't willing to put trash in parking lots, drink twisted teas till the time they're till legal shooting light, and then wonder why they can't hit ducks because they're drunk in the marsh with guns with their friends. We don't need any more of that. We need educated people that know their birds, are willing to be more than a hunter. And what does that mean? Well, are you a hunter? Or are you a conservationist and a good steward of the land? You see, there is a difference there. If you're just consuming a resource, that's the only benefit that you bring to the outdoors. You buy a license, you consume the resource, and that's where it ends. If that's the case, you're a hunter. That's all you do. You provide no value from there forward. Now, what makes you a good steward of the land? What makes you a conservationist? What makes you somebody that puts their heart and soul into something and shows a public and shows a demographic of people in the area that you live in that we need to do X, Y, and Z because it'll provide more of a resource for everybody, not just myself. Something we should all be asking ourselves. I've had a couple conversations because I did post about this on my Instagram, and I had some very good conversations with people that a gentleman said that, he read what I wrote on Instagram, and he was out duck hunting. And he took a long, hard look in his soul as far as am I just a hunter? What do I do for these animals besides just kill them? Do I provide any value to them besides buying garbage for hunting? Am I a hunter? And he thanked me for opening up that line of communication with himself in the marsh to ask those questions to yourself. So that's what I ask you guys too. Are you just hunters? Or do you go the extra mile? And I'm not saying go to banquets, throw a fat check on the counter, and win a gun and say you provided amazing stuff to conservation because you threw a bunch of money on the table for a nonprofit group. It's great if you do that, but it only gets you so far. Do you go out and put wood duck houses up? Do you provide your service to go out and help pick up trash in your wildlife area? Do you help with prescribed burns if you have areas that you can help with that? To be able to provide wildlife areas that have the grass and the different things that we need to have these wildlife thrive in these areas. What are you putting back on the landscape? You see, if you're putting things back on the landscape, for example, taking out nest predators, fox, coyotes, skunks, all that kind of stuff that can affect turkeys, they can affect duck populations and that kind of thing. If you're putting in that work and that's your mission, not just to kill something else, but to take something out, to gain something on the backside of it from nesting and all the other stuff that goes into it, if you're gaining that from it, yes, you are a conservationist. You're putting in the effort to make sure that because of me, this resource is going to thrive. And in turn, when the resource thrives, we all get to benefit from it, not just yourself. So it is something to look at, guys. So with that said, I appreciate you guys being on the podcast and listening to this podcast. We are going to do a lot more. When I say a lot more, these are going to be coming out pretty frequently. I got a lot to say. Ask my buddy Wyatt. I like to have a lot to say. Sorry, Wyatt. But me and him go back and forth and talk about things because, well, it's important to him too. I can feel that when we have those conversations. He's mainly a goose hunter in Iowa, and then he dabbles in duck hunting and that kind of stuff. But I can tell my mindset and his mindset kind of overlap one another in a lot of different things, and then we butt heads on some others. But with us being in the mindset of conservation, guys, you can have a hard conversation with a friend and have a mutual respect to either agree or disagree in certain areas and still be friends. And that's what it should be. You can talk it out, you can discuss things and have those adult conversations that help everybody. And if we would be having these adult conversations as the hunting public that we are, a lot more of us wouldn't be hunters. We'd be conservationists and we'd be stewards of the land, helping others grow. Because like I said before, we don't need new hunters. We just need the hunters that we have to be educated to the point where they understand we cause and effect on a lot of the things that we come across in nature, come across in the hunting woods, and come across in the marsh. So until next time, guys, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for listening along on the first video podcast that we're doing. Hopefully this all comes together. That's up to Anna. She does all the puzzle piecing it all together to make it work. But until next time, hit that follow button on Spotify. let your friends know about the podcast, guys. If you got young kids, you got older people in your group that just struggle with duck ID and they just want to have a resource available to them. Not everything that I talk about might be for you or might be for them, but little pieces and parts will be. And I like having those conversations open-ended to where people can leave a podcast and be like, you know what? Yeah, he was kind of wrong on that, but when he brought up the hunting thing and I'm just a hunter, yeah, I got to kind of think about that for a little bit. And if it sparks a little bit of that in you, that's what these are for. So until the next one, guys, appreciate you. Get those kids out there. Keep them safe. Keep yourself safe. And most importantly, get out there, get on some birds, and identify them before you pull that trigger. Take care, guys.